We do have a few updates. And I guess I could just jump right in really quickly since Joe's here now and welcome Joe as the new CEO for Napa Firewise. Um, Joe, do you want to say anything? Joe, you probably all know Joe. Joe is also the president of the Mount Veeder Fire Safe Council, and he's been with the board of Napa Firewise for approximately ever, for very many years, since the
I'm the
beginning of
new
time.
CEO that's been around for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. I mean, I've been on these calls before. I know many of you, and happy to join the call tonight. I think Sherry wanted me to talk a little bit about the BRIC grant that we got notified about a week and a half ago, a couple weeks ago. Is that what you want me to jump in on?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay. Do we have maps of it? Do you have a map slide?
Yeah, let me unshare and I'll dig that up.
I mean, I'll give you kind of a high level. This is a grant that we worked with the county to pursue. It's one of three FEMA grants that we chased, and this is the first one that we've been awarded, or I should say the county's been awarded. It's a total of $50 million, and 25% of that 50 million is matched by the county. So when you hear the number 37.5 million, that's sort of the FEMA money. And then there's an additional 12.5 million that the county is going to come up with. There's a couple qualifications to that. The 50 million is split into two chunks of money. 25 million is related to 7 large fuel reduction projects, and then 25 million is to fund a cost share program that will provide defensible space, monies for defensible space and home hardening for residents in the county. The match in the defensible space and home hardening program will be money that will, for the most part, come from landowners. So we don't know exactly what the mix and match is going to be, but hypothetically, if landowners took advantage of the defensible space and home hardening cost share, and they decided that they wanted to do $4,000 of defensible space and do some cladding around their house, and maybe the total bill is 25 grand, or let's say 40 grand, then in theory they would need to come up to 10 to unlock the 30 that the county would provide. There's a lot that needs to be determined. So all we have right now is a notification from FEMA that the award, that there is an award decision. It'll take probably 12 months to 18 months to work out the contract terms, to fine tune some of the polygons related to the large fuel reduction projects, to get some of the mechanics in place to administer the home hardening and defensible space cost share. So as a practical matter, it could be 12 months before money starts being spent. And we're likely to see an arrangement that's kind of like a hockey stick. Year one is a lot of effort and intention is going to be spent on the fuel management side. It's going to be spent on getting landowner agreements, making sure we get all of our CEQA, NEPA, and SHIPA, all the compliance that's related to sort of federal money being spent. And then the big money and the effort will probably be spent 2.5 years, 3 years from now, to do the large fuel management projects. And as part of that, we're going to be working closely with landowners to make sure that on the front end, we're helping them to think about maintenance regimes long term, because this funding doesn't fund maintenance. All it funds is implementation for the big fuel management projects. And so, for instance, if there's a large fuel management project that includes 20 landowners, 30 landowners, we're going to be going to those folks and saying, hey, once this project's done, what are you going to be able to do to maintain it? And that might mean that we help them to think about joining the Prescribed Burn Association, or to think about getting grazers in there, or whatever, so that the project can be maintained long term, because the county is not likely signing up for maintenance. There may be a maintenance component to it, but this funding and the FEMA funding doesn't fund maintenance, it only funds implementation. So it's a welcome news, but I think all of us who are on the call know that this is a really big, complex problem that's going to be very expensive to solve long term. And so we need to sort of strike a cautious tone out there about the fact that $37.5 million, $50 million is going to go a long way to helping a lot of residences on the defensible space home hardening. It's going to go a long way to helping the community with some of these big veg management projects. But we collectively have to be thinking about, okay, how are we going to maintain this work long term and things like that. Any questions about that grant? Gretchen DeLemer, you're on mute.
Are you gearing up in Napa Firewise additional staff or experts on how to set up your sort of administrative system to manage this inflow and outflow of money?
Yeah, so I mean, we will likely gear up to a degree, but the way this grant works, it's none of the money is going to sort of come to Firewise to spend. What's going to the county's on the hook. So what's likely to happen is let's take for example the 25 million that's associated with these 7 large veg management projects. It's not going to make any sense for the county to give us money to pay the vendors so that then we have to wait until the feds reimburse, because it's a big reimbursement grant. So what's likely going to happen, to the extent that Firewise, we have a role in this thing, it's going to be that we're sort of helping to organize, orchestrate, communicate, manage the projects, but more than likely the county is going to be selecting vendors to do the big veg management work and then just paying them directly. We don't want to have, it's not going to make a lot of sense to have an extra layer of money going through Firewise, given the fact that ultimately the county has, the money's got to be spent or the work has to be completed, and then it's a reimbursement grant. So unlike other grants that we pursue where we can get advances on the money and then we go about, building our teams and doing the work, etc., this is a very different kind of a grant. And we're talking about huge amounts of dollars that obviously Firewise we don't have the ability to float paying vendors and then waiting for 8 or 9, 10 months before we get paid. So,
okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Question, if I
Evan,
could.
yeah, go ahead.
So this is breaking news and huge news that, first of all, Joe Nordlinger, sorry, is our CEO now and helping out at the coordinated level. Thank you very much. But then also at the same time that we now just got $50 million. This is a great thing for all of us in this meeting. This is our dream come true. So that said, how do we prepare to help then the county and as fire safe councils is having updated CWPPs and having shovel ready projects. I think in the Berryessa Highlands, we've been talking about this and we're in the process of updating our CWPP. And we are going to finally take an aggressive measure of trying to get all landowners signed off on participation agreements. Are those things that we should be doing? What should we know? And for that matter, this is a big conversation to be had. So is there going to be a meeting in the near future for us fire safe councils to hear more about all of this?
Yeah, so all good questions. I think the first thing, what can the fire safe council? Well, let me just sort of rewind. What's going to happen is that Firewise will be, engaging. So there's a bunch of procurement stipulations because the way the federal government spends money on these things, they have a bunch of requirements about how vendors are selected, et cetera. So there's a lot of mechanical stuff that has to be worked out over the next 8, 9, 10 months. Like it might be 8 months before the county even signs a contract or 9 months before they sign a contract. So between now and over the next year, we're going to be engaged in sort of, I just had a meeting with the CEO today, county CEO today, and we're going to be essentially in a working group where we figure out, okay, what's our role? What's the county's role? How are we going to help? What do we need our fire safe councils to do? So I would say that we will have more detailed and meaningful and actionable communication for the fire safe councils probably in the next 90 days. Nothing's going to happen in the next 30 days other than our ability to tell you, this is what we applied for. But
Yeah.
the reality is that before the county, our position is we don't want the county to sign a contract that everybody's not super clear about. So we want to work closely with the county so that when they execute that contract with FEMA, we know exactly what it is we're accountable for doing, so that we just compress down any delay time in terms of the county's ability to get reimbursed, because nobody benefits if we go and do work and then the county doesn't get paid for a year or 2 years, right?
Yeah.
We gotta compress that down and make sure that we operate very efficiently. We're clear about what the work is that needs to be done. We mobilize the fire safe councils to help us get landowner agreements, et cetera. I'm talking about the veg management stuff really right now.
Yeah.
And so we will have a lot more detailed, better information in the coming months. Just know that our organization, we will need the fire safe councils that are connected to these veg management projects. We'll need them very engaged. We'll need the fire safe councils to help us get the word out about how the defensible space and the home hardening cost share is going to work. And so it'll be, a full force effort with all of the folks that are on this call and all the residents in your communities. Because the defensible space and home hardening money, that's going to touch everybody. It's going to democratize the ability for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people to make some meaningful investments in hardening their homes and improving their defensible space. The way we wrote the grant, there could potentially be up to like 30 grand. They asked us to write the grant, meaning FEMA did, and we went and looked at other FEMA grants. So part of the way we helped the county is we went and interviewed Lake Chelan, we interviewed Sonoma, we interviewed 4 other communities that got large FEMA grants for defensible space and home hardening, and we kind of built our application based on some of their lessons learned and stuff. But they want to make sure that they can provide money up to and including like a new roof. So it's pretty substantial amount of dollars.
From England to Mount Veeder to Berryessa, it'll help everybody.
Yeah, and it's anywhere in the county. So unlike the previous programs that we've done where we had to sort of carve off some territory and try to run a pilot in a specific area, this money is really supposed to be available for the whole county. And Sherry, I want to be conscious, just really quick, Sherry, I want to be conscious. You've got an agenda of things to cover here. This is obviously something that people are super interested in, but I don't know how much time you are anticipating spending on this. I'm here to talk as much as y'all want, but.
A quick question.
That's a can of worms. No, just really quickly. It's fine, Joe. I did some extra time for this because it is really interesting and important for people to have managed expectations about what this is and what it isn't. And it is exciting, but we just want to make sure people understand,
and take everything that I'm telling you with a little bit of a grain of salt, because it's very new news. There's a lot of details that have to be worked out. Please don't take anything that I'm telling you as like an absolute, because there's just a lot of stuff that we have to kind of work out. Eileen, I think you had your hand raised. You wanted to ask a question.
Yes. Joe, how does this tie into the original fire safe 5-year plan?
How does it tie into the 5-year plan? So the 5-year plan.
CWPP. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is we're going to always take an opportunity to sort of correct misperception. So there's the countywide CWPP is not the 5-year plan, right? The 5-year plan was an initial list of priority projects around the county that were associated with roads. And so the CWPP, the countywide CWPP, included outreach, included focusing on defensible space and ignition resistant construction. It included key types of fuel reduction projects. So this totally aligns with the CWPP. There are of the 7 projects, the veg management projects that are funded by BRIC, 2 of them, 3 of them, I think, are in the 5-year plan, but in a much more expansive way. So, for instance, down in your neck of the woods, Eileen, Coombsville Wild Horse Road is a road that's listed in the 5-year plan. And so the BRIC grant includes a pretty substantial amount of money to do work on like 8 different dozer trails, ridge tops, Wild Horse Road, Coombsville. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's all part of this sort of web of key sort of fuel break infrastructure. So it's going to touch elements that were in the 5-year plan. Hopefully that kind of answers your question.
I had a follow-up to that actually, which was, is
Yeah.
there somewhere, Sherry, you could put a link in the chat for where we could look and see what projects are in our individual areas so we can understand that and start integrating?
You mean from BRIC?
Yeah.
From the BRIC grant?
Yeah.
So Sherry just had a map up. We will be circulating a map
Great.
that is sort of what was proposed. And then just know that part of what we have an opportunity now before the county executes that contract, we want to make sure that we go fine tune a bunch of these polygons. So I don't, it's hard to, this is everything. So I don't know if you have a filter on here for FEMA BRIC, but there's 7 projects.
Did I hear right that maintenance is not part of the BRIC grant?
That's correct.
Okay, I was misspeaking to my group earlier this week, so I'll correct it.
Yeah, and we collectively need to recognize that maintenance is the big challenge that we all face. This is large, complex, very expensive work, and there's not a ton of money out there for maintenance. So there's going to come a time we're going to always be working on sort of long-term durable funding that may include some kind of a tax or fee initiative or whatever. The only way we're going to be able to sustainably maintain all the work that we're doing is likely with some supplemental increased county revenue somewhere, somehow. What that looks like is, I think we all recognize that it's going to take time to build the team, the coalition, the group of people that can drive that, and to figure out what that formula looks like so that we get a nice broad set of the electorate that's on board with it. But maintenance is not included in the BRIC. Maintenance is not included in really any of the grants that we pursue.
I just want to talk about terminology. So you're calling it a BRIC grant, and we were calling it a FEMA grant. So
I can explain that.
What's going to be the name that we should all be using going forward that's going to be consistently referred
BRIC is fine. Okay. So there's 3 FEMA grant programs that we have applied for. One is called BRIC, which is the one we were awarded, or the county was awarded, and that stands for Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities, kind of a mouthful. The other one that we applied for, some elements of, so it's called it's the FEMA HMGP, and it's a hazard mitigation grant program. That HMGP grant that we applied for, it's FEMA, a portion of it advanced, the other portions didn't. They may advance in the future, but we're assuming that they won't, and so we're looking around for other sources of money to pursue that. When I say it advanced, it has to go from county OES to Cal OES, from Cal OES to the FEMA panel for review. And so what happened with that FEMA HMGP grant is one chunk of the project proposed advanced to the FEMA panel for review. So no decision's been made. It's just essentially made it to the next level for consideration. Mm-hmm. Then there's a third type of FEMA grant that we have pursued through an earmark. Representative Thompson oversees some FEMA money that's called the PDM money, pre-disaster mitigation money. And that is nowhere right now. We've just submitted it. We don't know whether it's under consideration, whether it's advanced, or whether, we just know that we've submitted it. So if I had control of a mouse, I could, well, there is a, we'll get you, we will get map clarity
There's a
for all
layer.
the FSC leads to sort of be able to see what's going on. Just know that the borders and the absolute details of the 7 project polygons for the veg management part of the BRIC grant, they're probably, we're going to work on adjusting them likely, but not, we're not going to be able to say, well, hey, we're not going to do this one. We're going to do something totally different. It's really about kind of fiddling with the boundaries and the edges to make sure that we can do it the way we think it needs to be done.
Yes, and when I send around the link to the recording for this meeting, I'll also include a copy of the map with the BRIC grant projects that we had submitted for funding in that as well.
And I can tell you broadly, like if you go up there near Calistoga and you look at where it says Napa Valley on the map there, and you see that lime green,
Right here.
that's one. It's called the the Calistoga Foothills BRIC. That's one of the ones that's in BRIC. Another one is if you look down near Lake Hennessy, that thing that looks like a donut, that lime green donut there, that is part of the BRIC grant. And it's basically doing a lot of fuel reduction along Silverado Trail, Sage Canyon, Con Valley, and protecting all that Hennessy water infrastructure. There's another one, which is Berryessa Highlands. If you go down there, there's a whole bunch of lime green polygons that are in and around. That's part of the BRIC grant. There's another set of projects that are down in American Canyon that are all related to a bunch of eucalyptus that needs to be removed. Over in, actually you're right where that's that one there. Then if you go down over into the Coombsville area, you scroll to the right, this doesn't have it. There's a big, yeah, it's not on this map. There's essentially it's the Coombsville Wild Horse, it's Dozer Trails, it's Wild Horse Road, there's a multi sort of legged, looks like a big spider down there. That's you can only see 2-3 pieces of it. So that's one. Then there's a project that's over near Browns Valley, Alston Park. Yep, your mouse is not that one, the one above it, the lime green one above it. Yeah, that there is called the Lower Redwood Project. And essentially there's a lot of concern about all those Napa City suburban residents down there and all that vegetation, all that topography that comes off of the lower Mayacamas Range. So that project right there that's highlighted in lime green is connecting a bunch of dozer trails, reducing a bunch of vegetation to sort of close that vegetation gap. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I think there's I'm not sure. I feel like there's one more.
I know they're running
and then
together.
Howell Mountain Road.
Isn't it?
No, that's not it. Then there's a big blowout of Howell Mountain Road up in the Angwin area. Pretty substantial project on Howell Mountain Road, really expanding all the fuel reduction through that Angwin area.
Well, it's mighty impressive how you guys are able to identify and map out these projects. And I know it's just it's a rolling, process. And then that you're pursuing multiple grants and that you received this one. Huge kudos to you guys for all the hard work. And
we did a lot of work. We have to highlight that the county, I mean, ultimately the county's on the hook for this. The county applied for it. The county's the recipient of it. And it's big dollars. The county is very much on board. They stood up in a pretty major way. It's a big part of sort of delivering on this thing is everything that they did to kind of make it happen.
Well, and then you partnered with them and egged them on and showed them, sort of the path essentially from the inception of Napa Firewise. So it is a good partnership, and I'm so glad that it's, you know, showing some fruit at this
Yeah,
point.
absolutely. They're a critical partner. I mean, we have a pipeline of lots of other projects and lots of other funding sources that we're continuing to pursue. I just, before this meeting, came out of a meeting where we're looking at all of our projects, and you know, there's some BLM money, Bureau of Land Management money that we're going to pursue. There's a big, I forget even what the acronym stands for, CWDG. There's a large grant that we're going to be chasing. Every year we're going to chase after the two sources of CAL FIRE money.
Mhm.
So it never ends, as we know.
Yeah. Cool.
Any other
Yeah, great.
questions about that? We are going to be enlisting you for a lot of support as we embark on pursuing this thing. So stand by. We will have lots of opportunities for you all to do what you do, which is talking to your community and mobilizing and helping us get landowner agreements and getting the word out, and then helping us spend the money, right? The defensible space, ignition resistant construction
Yeah.
part of it. We need people to go sign up, go through the evaluation process, you know, select contractors, we need to spend the money. We don't want to give $1 of this money back to the federal government.
We were getting bored up here on Diamond Mountain. I don't know. Like we just need more things to do.
Joe, one thing that I
Yes.
think we probably want to make people aware of is it's going to be a little bit different than our current grant. I think that we're going to be required to use licensed contractors.
Yeah.
It's a little bit TBD, but the requirements are more stringent than under our current grants.
Yeah. And Piper, you raised a good point after we were at an event last night. We don't know exactly. When I say 25% match, we know that that's the match that the county's obligated to. We don't know that that's necessarily the match that the resident is going to be obligated to. There's just a lot that needs to be worked out. So directionally, we know that there will likely be some accommodations for people who have financial, physical, age limitations. And for other folks, you know, there's going to be a match component. We don't know what it is. That's a lot of that stuff has to be sorted out.
Yeah,
Is the current Piper, is the current D-Space program though that you've been working, that's still in play now until this other thing kind of.
We'll spend all that money. Yeah.
It's still in play until we use up the money.
Okay.
Or the grant ends, which is, I think, March of 2025.
Oh, okay, great.
But we certainly hope to use it up before then.
Okay.
And we're trying to keep track of it. So, and for anybody on this call, it's good to know we are not reserving any funds until somebody actually submits the application and then is pre-approved. Once they're pre-approved, we are reserving that money. So we will not pre-approve people for more money than we have left.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the message out there is sign up, put in your application, get pre-approved, and then do the work, then get the work done.
Okay.
Excellent. That is a lot of good updates right there. I lost my notes again while you were talking, but while we have you all here, I did ask Tom Vreeland to give a short overview. So we're talking about all the funding for BRIC and the projects that Napa Firewise has been working on, but I just wanted to highlight some of the things that fire safe councils can do to improve conditions in your own fire safe council. And I think Tom has a great example. Tom, do you want to introduce yourself? Tom Vreeland is.
Sure. I'm Tom Vreeland with the Atlas Peak Fire Safe Council. We started the council back in 2011, and we've done projects pretty much every year since, including some larger projects early on. Something that we started, and this is all very small and minor in comparison to the things we've been talking about here, which all the work that the Firewise has been doing is awesome, and some great things to come. Anyway, Atlas Peak Road is used for bicyclists, walkers, basically recreation. And the weeds come right up to the asphalt edge of the road, and it's not exactly a wide road. So at the start, once we formed the Fire Safe Council, one of the first things we saw is that we need to do weed abatement along the road edge. So each year we have been doing weed whacking for about half the length of the road, which takes care of the highest density housing and the highest used area. It's about $10,000. And initially it was all funded through Firewise, and that has morphed into being funded by donations. So I think what it is the residents saw the value in the weed whacking and like having it. It's a peace of mind, not just for walkers to step off the road, let a car go by, but if you have a car pull off the road into tall weeds, you could start a fire. It's just a good, safe thing to be doing. And so we have a pretty good outreach program with our residents that we just go out to them and say, you want the weed whacking done, we need donations. And the donations come in. So in the past few years, the Atlas Peak Fire Safe Council has been funding the weed whacking with funds that are donated via Firewise. So it's a tax deductible donation for people, which people enjoy, and we get the money. It's as simple as that. And so it's just really showing people the value of the weed whacking and getting them to buy into funding it. Pretty simple.
I'd just like to add that it is simple, but it's so important. And I think I may have complained about this on this call before, but for Spring Mountain, we had the county come out and do clearing along the road, and I followed them up, and the mower got some of the brush, but it didn't touch the grass and the dry weeds. So Spring Mountain is kind of choked. We've done some great tree work along the road, which is all wonderful. But I have seen many times cars, just like Tom mentioned, pulling off the road because they're on fire, and to have the grasses right there is really troubling. So this is just something that it would be a wonderful thing for neighbors to get together and fund, or for the Fire Safe Council seemed like a perfect avenue for that.
It is, and it's also really helpful for Fire Safe Council residents because it's feasible. Like it's something you can see accomplished, like the signage project where you see the signs, you did the work, you see the signs, people feel good. Weed whacking is also really doable. It's not out of control like taking down giant hazard trees, which is really hard to do without a bigger organization, but it's a great way to attract donations for your local neighborhood because it's really literally on the ground. It's direct effect.
Isn't it?
I'll mention, so go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to ask a follow-up question to that, which is there a reason why the county doesn't do the weed whacking? Or is there a way we could push on them to finish the job?
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
The weeds need to be whacked basically when they dry out and you don't have further rains. Yeah. So if you do weed whacking in April, they're all going to come back, and you're going to have weeds through the summer. So the county has the one mower. It's a logistical issue. It can only mow so much per day. So it goes through and takes care of the brush, which is actually very helpful. And the articulating mower will go up and take out brush further off the road, which is good. But you need to do that weed whacking typically in June, early July, depending. And they're just not set up to do it.
Well, and they can't be everywhere at once. If it's all happening in July, they can't be at every road in July.
The one thing I didn't mention also is we use Napa Roots to do the weed whacking. They do not do traffic control separately. So what happens is we alert the residents and ask the residents to tell their workers for their vineyards, or if there's construction going on, tell their workers to warn them that this work is going to be going on. We put up road signs that the work's going to be done, but basically it's two guys with a weed whacker and orange vest along the side of the road without the traffic control. So that basically doubles the amount of work we're going to do, because if you have traffic control, now you're talking 4 people, you're going to go half as far. So at least that's what we've been doing.
That's interesting. I wonder if we could partner with the county or anyone else to help with traffic control. I know we've done that within the city limits in St. Helena. They provided traffic control for projects we've done. So there may be some workarounds, but that's a really good point. That's a very expensive undertaking. The other thing is the county, like I said, I followed the mower up, and I think the intent was to mow the grass. In a couple places it worked, but between the rocky terrain and the heavy duty guardrails that are in places along the road, that equipment was not able to do the job that was needed. So I think that's part of it as well. Like sometimes you just need the more direct touch of
the hand crews.
Hey, team,
Yeah.
Gretchen has raised, I think it was Gretchen raised a really good point, which is that whenever a fire safe council is thinking about raising donations, please make sure that you get folks to list which fire safe council they want it to go to, but also very importantly, like what project. If there's a specific project that you're trying to raise money for, it's very hard for us to know, when money's coming in. We want to make sure, because we get it comes via check, it comes via the website, comes via the Stripe, all these various ways. We need to understand which fire safe council to allot it to, and then if there's a specific project that you're trying to raise money for, what that project is. So please emphasize as you're doing your fundraising that people provide as much detail as possible about what they're donating towards.
Joe, isn't it actually easier on Napa Firewise and the FSC if they just donated to the FSC and don't necessarily specify a project?
That's what I appreciate.
It's absolutely easiest. It's absolutely easiest for us, but there are times, like in this case here, that there may be some specific project that you're wanting to use the money for.
Yeah, I think if
the scenario that you just described, Piper, is the easiest thing for everybody.
Just say the FSC, say your fire safe council that you're donating the money to, and we need to make sure our members say our fire safe council.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to say the fire safe council. I think in terms of if you have them trust you enough that they don't have to say a specific project, that's, I think, easier for everybody.
It's definitely easier for us, but if you do need it specified to a project, you just have to really ask people to do that too. And yeah, we do get funds that are donated that we don't know where they go, and it's a little bit difficult to sort out. So regardless, it's great. And then you guys are doing wonderful work doing fundraising, and would it, gosh, I guess maybe in the chat, you can let me know if it would be helpful to have a one of these presentations on fundraising ideas. I know we've talked a little bit like the Winemakers Classic and a few things, but if that would be a topic of interest and any other topics of interest, please do send them in the chat now or send me an email and let me know. That's super helpful to know what would be helpful to you. And I didn't want to let Tom Vreeland escape without sharing that he used to be the president of the board of Napa Firewise.
All right.
It was a long time ago.
Thanks for sharing your success story here, Tom, and thanks for all you've done for Napa Firewise to keep it going. And Gretchen and Joe have been hanging in there, keeping it going. Thanks to Jonathan and Sherry now.
Yeah, Tom, just so everybody knows, Tom was critical at a time when the board was sort of, dissolving in a way, because a lot of people lost their homes, including Tom, and Tom stayed at it and acted as the chair while we sort of reconstituted and rebuilt the board and sort of adjusted the mission of the organization. So at a critical moment in our history, he stood up and kind of made it happen. So
thank you very much. I do need to jump in and clarify. I'm the other Gretchen. So there's Gretchen Hayes, Firewise.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Gretchen DeLemer, who's lead on the Diamond Mountain Fire Safe Council with some other very worthy colleagues. So it's confusing to have two Gretchens, but I want to make sure she gets the credit for being on the Napa Firewise.
Thank you.
Having two Gretchens is an embarrassment of riches.
Isn't that true? If all Gretchens were as productive as these two Gretchens, we want more Gretchens.
Yes, and Joe put in the notes that with county approval, CERT can help use do traffic control.
Ooh,
So that's a hot tip. Thank you, Joe. That's really good to know.
Yeah.
that's a
It's re-
volunteer corps, right? CERT?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Community
Yeah, and
Emergency
then
Response Team. Yep.
That's
Yeah.
super,
oh
super
yes,
cool.
and Joe is a lead for CERT. Is that correct? Or what would you say?
Correct.
What is your
I
title?
co-lead. My wife leads the one in Berryessa
Lead.
Highlands. But yeah, there's
Awesome.
American Canyon CERT and there's a Napa CERT. So there's probably 60 different people that we could make a request, and then when it's all planned, and then they can, this is within our purview.
Oh, great. Good to know.
Fantastic.
Super good to know.
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah,
My
that's a
daughter
really
years ago did a CERT in the high school level, and I thought that was an incredibly great program, and I hope it's still operating where they're taking high school students and training them as junior community, emergency response people.
Yep.
It's
We
really-
actually bring them into the regular program. We had at least one high school student in our training last Saturday.
That's awesome.
Oh, fantastic. That's great to know. We can help promote that too. I think that would be really good to
That's
get that
actually a
information
great
out.
idea. We should
Yeah.
definitely promote that. Okay.
Well, it's a
Yes.
great resource for all fire safe councils eventually when we figure out how to work them in to do some control support on these side road type of projects where some traffic control would help, because it'd give them great experience. They could stand out there for 4 or 6 hours volunteering, which would be fantastic experience, and for us. That is an interesting resource.
And for high schoolers, it might get them those community volunteer points that some of them can really
Absolutely.
benefit from too.
Right. Yeah, speaking of that, we're actually, just as an example, in the distribution and installation of our signs for Calistoga FSC. We've got Calistoga Rotary doing it, and they're doing it in conjunction with the Eagle Scouts that volunteered. I think that came in through Jonathan. But they were very interested in doing something with Napa Firewise. And so that's where we're using them.
That's fantastic. I always believe we're not
Yeah.
using our adolescents enough, in our communities to give them meaningful purpose. And this is a perfect.
Absolutely.
example.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rick Evans had a great question, and it leads me to my next point on the list. And I'm also interested to hear this, but he says he's very interested in how other fire safe councils assess the home hardening and or defensible space needs of their communities. And that is a great question. I'm going to put a pin in that one for 1 second. Because I did want to talk about I had posed the idea of offering a training for people who are interested, and I do have a list of some of you who have expressed interest in this, but to be trained in how to do the wildland fire assessments. So you could do defensible space and home hardening assessments. And it's not, this is just strictly as a volunteer. It's not on the enforcement realm at all. This is just to help provide advice to your neighbors if they're interested. So this is in no way replaces the good work that Eric does and Eric's team, but it's just a purely educational.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about that, Sherry? Because if we do it and if we get the funding, which we didn't this time, we'll probably use the group that we're working with for our program.
Yes, and California Fire Safe Council has also offered to provide that training and how to use the fire-aside software as well. But it would be a training for up to 20 people, maybe a couple more we could squeeze in. And they would be potentially able to do it in the very near term in late October. I don't know, that timing might be, we've talked a little bit about, Piper and I talked about how that might not be the best time of year, because then you're sitting on this great information all winter. And then in the spring, when people are starting to think about this, you might need to dust off your skills. Plus, I know a few people who are interested in participating are winemaking folks, and they might be a little busy until November, but I do want, we had a poll. I think we practiced it too many times, and now it's expired, but I was going to try to see what kind of timing would be the most the best for all of you, days of the week, and that's that's not just for this training, just in general, if we plan field trips and workshops and an in-person fire safe council leads meetings, whether weekends or evenings, are best. So I will send a Google poll around to everybody sometime after this meeting later this week, and we'll try to get that just so I can helps us plan what will work best for all of you. But back to the training, if you are interested in this, 20 people could mean one person from each fire safe council, and that person, once they're trained, can help train other people. That's the theory. But Piper, go ahead and could you share the information about the team we've been using?
Sure. So FireSide is the software provider that we're using. And if this is training that CFSC does, which is great, on the FireSide software, this is great. And we've worked on the outline of it, but we use some of the grant money to purchase some Apple iPads, which are what you would do this on. And you'd basically have an interface that's pretty easy to use. So once you're trained up, when you go out to the property, you've got all of the what they call discoveries, all of the things to look for. And then you can just check them off, take photographs, and then all of that is kind of munged together by the software into a really comprehensive report that will go to the resident and really give them an idea of what needs to be done, both from a defensible space standpoint and from a home hardening standpoint. And what we're also doing with the company who is doing that for us under the cost share grant is we're also geolocating pools, ponds, water tanks, that sort of thing, and feeding that into CAL FIRE and Napa County Fire Department so that they have that information in a format they can use for their pre-attack maps. So not only are we giving the residents information, but we're also providing them to our firefighters and first responders.
Sorry, Piper, what's the name of that program you're using to do that with?
The company is called FireSide.
FireSide, ASIDE.
ASIDE, exactly.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And then they charge Napa FireWise $17.50 for each property we do, which is, I think, the bargain of all time. And then you've got the portal so that the resident can go in, look at the portal, and as they make corrections to any of the stuff that's spotted, they can write that down. They can check those off. So it becomes a resource that they can go back to check and keep track of what they're doing.
And sorry, that feeds into the contact management system that CAL FIRE or local fire departments use?
Not contact management as much as, well, I guess partly contact management, but also to just know a little bit more about each of the properties.
Well, that's exactly,
that was
exactly my question too, because we have gathered at Diamond Mountain Fire Safe Council, a huge data bank with all that kind of information about pools and water, and the fire departments that we've tried to approach and give them and connect with this data, they're just like, we don't look at that. We're not interested. We have our own thing. So
part of what Piper did here is she used with FireSide and the way we set up the program, the data that we collect goes into a data schema that maps to the way CAL FIRE organizes their data.
So if we at Napa at Diamond Mountain Fire Safe Council started to work within the FireSide group,
well, probably what you do, you collected your data in a system called Hive something.
WiseHive is one of them.
WiseHive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have that data in WiseHive, but that data schema is different than what CAL FIRE uses, which one of the things they use is called Survey 123. Piper, tell me if I'm off on this, but I think
a little. Actually, I put Jason Brooks of FireSide together with Jason Martin of Napa County Fire, and Jason Martin's a little bit of a tech geek as well, and they are working together on a format. I just saw an email that confirmed that what FireSide is giving them, they can use.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this is
So that's
really,
the key
this is
thing.
breaking news, Piper. This is really excellent. And we'll be in touch with you to find out how we can, tie into it. Because we've spent 5 years developing a database with all kinds of property information and nowhere to share it.
I'll find
so-
out if you can give me sort of the schema and stuff of your database, probably through Edward.
Sure.
I can find out if Jason can convert it to, if Jason Brooks can convert it to what Jason Martin needs.
Excellent. Yeah.
There may be a fee to do that, but at least now they're talking technically to one another, and so this is a big breakthrough.
A big evolution in what we've been talking about together for several
and
years.
Piper, this is statewide CAL FIRE. I mean, I know that's a little redundant to ask. Sorry, I was a little late, stuck in traffic. But this is statewide information now that anyone in the CAL FIRE world fighting fires would be able to access.
I don't know that. If what Jason Martin is asking for fits that criteria, then it is. I have left it with him as to what he needs, and he's given, he's dictated what kind of file and what information he wants, and then Jason Brooks of Fireside is providing that.
So that sounds like that's not still on the county level, but it's still a huge step forward. And
right, and it's really a question that's out of our hand. How much is the county integrated with the state? That's nothing we have control over.
Right. But if they can suck out our data and understand, all the water sources in our neighborhood, that would be great.
And
Yes.
Piper, are you the best contact for this?
Barring anything else, yeah, probably. I'm the interface with Fireside. So yeah.
We will talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great, because I know on behalf of other fire safe councils, and we spoke, Brandon and I spoke with Joe about this the other day. We have data coming in from our Green Signs project. We have data coming in from the county download. We have data coming in from our signups online. And so the question for each fire safe council is, how do you put all that data together in one repository that the firefighters can also use? To Diamond Mountain's point,
it's not just can use, it's will use.
Will readily.
So if I may chime in really quick, this is Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Hey, so I know to answer one of the questions that was brought up is, it is my understanding. So the what we're using right now and the county level is tablet command. It's a brand new system. And to my understanding, the state is actually going to be moving away from their current database that they're using. And in the future, they're going to be also using tablet command, which means all this data and this information that Chief Martin has asked from Piper is eventually the state will be able to use this as well. So now keep this in mind. You have county, you have state, right? But one key, which is great, one key thing to always keep in mind is, when you look at Napa City, you look at other jurisdictions, they might not have that same infrastructure that the state and the county are using. So just keep that in mind. But at the very least, in the county level and the state level, eventually will be synced and using the same database.
Great.
Thank you.
That's
That would
great
be
to
wonderful.
hear, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, it'd be a big step forward.
Team, I got to
And
jump
Eric-
to another meeting. Thanks for everybody's hard work. Appreciate it. Look forward to continuing to work with all of you. And none of the things that we do work if we don't have great people on the ground through the Fire Safe Council. So we really appreciate all of your effort.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, take care.
Congratulations, Joe, for your new title.
Yeah, thank you. Catch you later.
Bye.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Erin. And thanks, Eric. While you're on the call too, there was a question about whether if we do train volunteers to do these assessments, whether they'd be able to issue certificates of compliance. And I'm going to say no, because that would be up to you, of course, but there is a waiver that comes along with these trainings saying this is strictly for informational, educational purposes, and so that would be it would be great. But if you need,
Well, so I know that there is a bill. I don't remember if it's a Senate bill or it's a if it's a state bill or assembly bill or a state Senate bill. But I know there is one that was actually brand new. I think it's part of AB 38, if I remember correctly. Or, but long story short, there is something that it's in the works. That there is the language that states that upon upon the local jurisdiction or CAL FIRE building a criteria, we do have the ability to train VIPs. So, and fire safe councils, volunteers so if you go through this training, a specific training, you will now be eligible to issue the same thing that I do is issue certificates, and they will be recognized. And furthermore, you'll be able to have access to the same app, online application that we're using, where when I do when I perform an inspection, I mark it whether it's compliant or non-compliant. You would have the same capabilities as I do. The only difference is you won't be able to get warrants, which, obviously I don't think any of you want to get warrants, which is fine. But at the very least, there is language that allows volunteers from fire safe councils to be able to have access to that and issue those certificates. I know that having a conversation with Chief Wink, whom is the pre-fire division chief, and also with Chief Martin, they agreed that we do find a big advantage in our county for that. So, but I have to follow up with Chief Martin on that. I believe that we were waiting for the criteria from CAL FIRE, but we might be a little bit different because since Napa County has its own ordinance, most likely I will be the one performing that training to get you certified so that you can, within your fire safe council district, you can now go out and do your inspections and issue those certificates. I know that when
deputizing some volunteers.
Absolutely. And I think the first thing we thought about, and I again, I have to tie in with Chief Martin, is trying it out with one fire safe council to see how this goes. So that's something that I'll follow up. I'm going to actually put in a call to Chief Martin today and put it in his ears so that him and I can discuss it tomorrow. And once
fantastic.
I get and once I get the a response, I can tie in with you.
Okay. And I don't know if this would muddy the waters, but potentially, so that it's the Wildland Fire Assessment Program through the National Volunteer Fire Council, I think, the program that California Fire Safety Council was offering to teach. But I wonder if volunteers wanted to do that and do some practice just on the voluntary level, and then people who are very interested in it could get the advanced training from Eric, or if the trainings would be very similar or not. So just, I guess the local ordinances would not be covered in the training that California Fire Safety Council would cover.
And the way that I look at it is because keep in mind, I myself go through certain training through the state level as well. So, I highly encourage, I think if I remember correctly, it's Dry Creek, Mount Beater Fire Safe Council. They've done a tremendous job on doing and going out in the community and meeting with people. Other fire safe councils do as well, but I highly encourage it. It's whether it's through this platform or through myself. Eventually, is the more information we can get out there, the better. And for me, I think that in a perfect world, the way that I envision this is if I can either deputize or if I can just provide training for the fire safe council leads so that within your jurisdiction, you're going out and you're doing inspections and conveying that information and preparing people. And then, you contact me and let me know, Eric, this community is ready to go. Can you come out and inspect? All we have to worry about now is I have to worry about issuing certificates, and that's it.
Yeah,
So, which
Eric, thank you. I think that's exactly right. And Sherry, to your point, the way I kind of saw it working in our area was an opportunity with sort of trusted messengers. I think it's called in the greater world, with trusted messengers to come in and say, okay, let's review everything that you've got going on and what you've done. And here's what you need to do. And here's sort of a plan. And then call in the guys who can enforce and certify. But to let that be a neighborhood thing first, not to replace in any way, shape, or form the validation of the fire department.
Right.
A partnership.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And I think, oh, go ahead. Oops, you're breaking up a bit, Eric. Oops. I think we're losing you, Eric.
I'm here there.
Better?
A little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, sorry about that. For some reason, I turned my Wi-Fi off. So, a perfect example, and not that this is the only one, but I'm very proud the work that we're doing with Rick over at the Fire Safe Council, the Circle Oaks Fire Safe Council. We have continuous meetings throughout the year with the Circle Oaks HOA and the community members, and being able to look at the product and where we're at currently, just right now. I mean, in the 4 years that I've been here in the county, I had never seen Circle Oaks look better. But that's because of all the efforts, that not only the Fire Safe Council, but also the community members and the HOA are doing. But spreading the words, inviting us to picnics, that's what a Fire Safe Council community is. And that's something that we want to continue doing. And I highly encourage all the Fire Safe Councils to continue doing that. We've received various invitations to come out to your Fire Safe Council meetings, and please, not just myself or speaking on behalf of Chief Greenberg, because he's attended some as well, but please continue inviting us. As you see, myself and Chief Greenberg are not the only ones that are coming out. We are bringing out the firefighters, the people that are going to be there with the engines when there's an emergency, right? Whether it's a fire or whether a cat needs to be rescued. We're there. So continue doing that. I think that everybody's doing a great job on providing that information, and that's all we're asking for. Provide the education to your community and give us an invite whenever you want us out, and we'll continue supporting that.
Thanks, Eric. That's great.
We all appreciate that. It's great when
true.
people in uniform show up to our community events. It adds just a lot of depth. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And just being mindful of time, it is 6:08, so we've gone over the hour yet again, and we haven't done a roundtable check-in. So people probably have dinner and other things to attend to. But if you'd like to stay on and talk more, answer more questions, or talk about what you've been doing in your Fire Safe Council, giving a quick update, I'm happy to stay on the call a bit longer.
I'll jump in really quick because I also do need to jump off, but we had a quiet summer. We had a Diamond Mountain Fire Safe Council. We had a great community event in June, and then that was then everybody took the summer off and pursued individual projects that were still happening, but we didn't come together as a group and meet until this September. So we've had a steering committee meeting and other meetings, and we're about to launch we just launched a safety newsletter to our constituents, just to remind them of all the good fire safe practices in the event of an emergency or all those things. And then next week, we're going to launch our fundraising email. So we've just sort of gotten back on the stick here, and we're also updating our website. We noticed there were some old links that we hadn't really attended to, including one that there was an old link for a webinar that happened like 4 years ago. And when you clicked on the link, it took you to a online gambling site. So clearly we needed to just maintain our website. So we worked on that today. So we're kind of September, we're back in the sort of action mode. A lot of people were out of town over the summer. So we're, back on the thing. So that's our report.
Hey, Sherry,
Thank
I just
you.
want to give a quick shout out to Jonathan Nixa. He spent yesterday morning hanging out with me, showing me around all the work that's being done around the Circle Oaks community. He and I had a great morning discussing how to get community members more involved and informed about the work that's being done on our behalf. I don't think people really appreciate all the things that are being done here. And Jonathan and I spent a great 2 hours or so looking at a lot of the work that's being done. And it's a great incentive for me to jump into doing whatever I can to communicate with the rest of the community and letting them know of all the things that are being done on our behalf, and working with Eric, as we have been doing for quite some time now. Eric mentioned the community gathering that we had earlier in the summer. Great event. We need to do more of that, but it's a great jump off into the things that we need to do more of. So I just wanted to mention and show some appreciation for Jonathan and Eric and all the work that they've been doing for us.
Thanks, Rick. That's great to hear.
And you,
we
Rick,
wanna-
connecting you all with vendors too. Putting a face to the vendors and the people there with the community members. And Rick pointed out a few spots where we can, as NCFF, can hang signage. Simple things like that, community knowledge, is so critical and so very helpful. And Rick, thank you very much.
Hey,
Well said. And what I heard too is maybe a field trip out there and or to the various Highlands to see some of the great projects that have been going on.
Definitely.
I'd love to.
Sherry,
Well,
if I
thank you.
may, I apologize. Before people start jumping off the meeting, one thing that I do want to share, and I want to give credit to Gretchen, is we have a fuel mapper app report now that you can actually download for free. I put in the link on the chat, and I know Gretchen did as well. So feel free to click on that. And please start promoting it. The purpose of this fuel mapper is to basically, it's another tool in our toolbox. So in other words, if you as a community member want to identify and want to know how to create defensible space, you could actually go and click on this link, enter your address, download our free report with 5 maps. These maps are generated specifically for that particular property and for your property, and they highlight the 100-foot buffer zone around all your structures. And the idea is it shows you the flame lengths, the 30-foot zone, the 100-foot zone, and if it also identifies if your neighbor is within 100 feet of your structure, it gives you the ability to recognize that and potentially start a conversation with your neighbor. But by all means, please start sharing this new tool that it's free. It lives on our website, but I have to give credit to Gretchen because the funding comes through NCFF, but also this wouldn't be possible without the help from Gretchen. So I just want to share that. Please go to it, use it. And if you have any questions, give me a call and I can assist you with it. But there's a video that the tutorial video on the website that tells you how to actually use it. And the link is in there as well.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for
that's
pointing that out.
Gretchen Hayes. That's Gretchen
Yeah.
Hayes from Napa Firewise. Just want to make sure.
The other Gretchen. Yes. Thank you. And that's a great point. And the links are in the chat. Eric's link goes to the D-Space Chipper program And that's where you'll find the tutorial. And then Jonathan put in the direct link to the fuel mapper by county. So it's a cool program. Go check it out, surf around in there. And I really appreciate that tutorial. Gretchen, Gretchen Hayes did do a short overview at our last Fire Safe Council leads meeting last month. So I can also include the link to that recording in case you want to watch that too. But I think there were some struggles at that point because we were all new to it. So going straight to this tutorial and checking it, just drive around in there and see what you can find out about your property or your whole Fire Safe Council. It is set up to look at the stats for your Fire Safe Council as well. And great. So let's see. I think our numbers are dwindling a little bit. Look at all of us hanging on though to the bitter end. And then one more thing I did want to just say really quickly, Roger. I don't know if you're able to share your screen, but Roger put together a couple cool videos illustrating the grazing program out at the Highlands and some of the defensible space work that we're doing on I believe it was Alice Peak Road. You might not. I don't know if you. And I didn't.
Yeah, friends, I don't think I can share the screen on here, but I just posted it tonight to Facebook and Instagram. And one of the things that I want to make a habit of whenever we are meeting together as a group, that we are reminding our participants, our friends, our followers, our allies, anyone who you are talking to about Napa Firewise and about Fire Safe Council activity is please encourage them to join and follow our social media. I realize not everybody has social media, but if you do, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to very simply share the information that we have and invite people to learn more about the programs we're doing. It's a real simple way for those of us that may not be able to do everything we want. This is a very simple way. Click, share. And again, I will drag this dead horse around, but every time you like or comment, or if you do take the time to share, it helps spread that message even further. I've been very fortunate to have a great ally with Corey Edwards, who runs the Napa Valley 911 information page on Facebook. He has over 25,000 followers, and he is sharing our videos and our information as they come up on Facebook. So that's a huge gain for us because we're reaching thousands of folks.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you, Piper. So on your screen right now, you see a QR code. If you haven't already followed Napa Firewise, here's your great chance. That link will take you right to, let's see, Piper, does that go to Facebook or Instagram?
No,
I guess it's kind of the same thing.
It's very cool. What it does is it says, follow us, Napa Firewise, and it's got a link to the site, a link to the Facebook page, and a link to YouTube so that you can follow or subscribe to all of them. And I'll send you, Sherry, this QR code, and you can send it out to everybody so that when they are communicating with their fire safe councils, use this. It makes it really easy for people to get to our various social media so that they can follow and subscribe to it.
Wow, thank you. And
that sounds
I didn't realize
awesome.
YouTube was on there too. Yay.
I didn't realize it was so broad. And I want to do a little shout out to Piper. We attended the Calistoga Fire Safe Council event last night at Charles Krug, and it was a terrific success. Lots of people turned out. The information that was given by all sorts of people like Joan Nordlinger and others and Eric Hernandez, it was very useful, and it was a really big success. And I think Piper did a great job for the Calistoga group that she's also in charge of, besides being on the Napa Firewise board. So bravo to Piper for that.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. And Gretchen, who at a drop of a hat will both show up and help and is just amazing to have around, was so wonderful to come and to bring Charlie with her. So thank you for that. And also to Sherry, who brought all of the stuff that we needed and helped set up, which was invaluable.
Yeah,
it was an adventure. Thanks.
It was a good event, and a lot of really super deep information was shared with a good group of people. So
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Sherry, I will also send you the link to my slide deck, which
Perfect.
includes
Thank
this,
you.
in
I
case
love it.
anybody wants to see it, because we've also got information on the Defensible Space Cost Share Program and some other stuff on defensible space. So anyway, anybody who wants to see it can, and anybody who wants to steal from it, I consider that the highest form of flattery.
Wonderful. Brandon, did you have a question? Oh, now I see you. Or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to give an update that the Beacon Box project that was sponsored by Colgan Sellers on the Hennessy Rector Fire Safe Council will be receiving our final maps next week, and so we will be fully operational. Hopefully by the end of next week, we'll be the first Beacon Box in the valley, in the county.
Can you describe what a beacon box is, please?
Sure. Yeah. The easiest way to describe it is like it's a community Knox box. You know, does everyone know what a Knox box is?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a community Knox box where it has critical information inside. It's a big red box with a beacon light on top that's strategically placed in an area where would be a staging point for out of town fire crews that were summoned here during a wildfire that are not familiar with the area. And inside of this box is critical information of the area, maps of water sources, truck turnaround points, mile markers, number of structures in a particular area. For example, in Hennessy Rector, we have a certain number of structures, a certain number of water sources. Everything's mapped out for them so they can confidently go into an unfamiliar area and help save time, money, and structures and lives.
And is this, I've heard of this before and it's really awesome. Is this something that Napa Fire and CAL FIRE are tuned into? Are they
Yes,
look for that?
Yes, earlier Eric was referencing Tablet Command, the app that they use to kind of consolidate all their data and information, and the goal is to get the Beacon Box locations on Tablet Command, so JC Greenberg can instruct out of town crews to head to a particular area and reference this Beacon Box. And what it does is it consolidates the time gap between when an out of town crew arrives and when they're given instruction to complete a task or to go into a particular area, which sometimes takes a long time. I know that Pam can attest to that. And a lot of times, oh, there you go. Thank you for that. A lot of times these crews, they have no idea where they are, where they're going, or what's up there, and it's very risky to go up into an area where they don't know how far up they can go on a road before they can turn their truck around, or how far up they can go to a structure that has been protected with defensible space, or if there's a water source up there.
On the Beacon Box with the light, what's the power source for that light?
It's solar.
Okay, cool.
And there'll be a new generation coming soon where there'll be a tiny little weather system on there that can communicate as well. But for now, it's a box that has critical maps inside of it of a particular area. It has USB ports. It has Thunderbolt ports. You can see up there in the top right corner an example of that, and it's been hailed by local fire crews. We just recently did a fire drill up at Colgan and had the Rutherford Fire Department up, and I was describing the Beacon Box to them, and oftentimes they have to go into other counties to fight fires, and they said the Beacon Box would be very valuable for them in other counties.
Brilliant.
I think, Brandon, back to that earlier conversation with Piper and Fireside, we probably should find out if Beacon Box, by the way, everybody, Spring Mountain's looking to be the second Fire Safe Council to put these in behind the Hennessy Rector Group where Brandon works. Brandon also lives over in the Spring Mountain Fire Safe Council, so we get the benefit of two Brandons, right? So
yes, thank you.
so we should probably need to find out if this KMZ shapefile format for Napa County Fire is something that Beacon Box can talk with also. I think all this database talking is really needing to get ironed out here, to Gretchen's questions earlier.
Thank you, Pam. And I was going to say, I know we're running short on time for this particular meeting, but man, it would be so helpful, I think, as a future topic for the leads meeting, if we could use the power of NCFF to get the right people in the room to talk about this. Because we've been dealing with that. We have a robust, now I would say a robust database that has a lot of mapping things.
You do. You have the hard work done. You guys have the hard work done at times now.
Exactly, but we
have a Knox box at the bottom of our road, but nobody's ever opened it. So we were sort of pioneering it before it became a thing.
So at this point, we're kind of ready to say, okay, we've got the data. Let's figure out how to make it useful. But we want to do it right, and we don't want to do it with like what's going to be last year's news.
Yes.
And
I'm happy to.
Yeah, I think if we could get all the right people in the room, and I'm not exactly sure who that is, but Sherry, maybe that's something we could ask you, Roger.
Sure. This is exactly what I talked with Joe about the other day, was this database management issue underneath all of this.
It's crazy.
Gretchen and Donnie, I'm happy to have you over with Brandon and myself to show you our map. Our areas are very similar how you would install them, and we've identified our 5 sites at $3,000 each, and we're going to use $15,000 of our fundraised money to install these. You know, it's a pretty straightforward.
Music to our ears. Maybe Sherry, that might be like say a February meeting, sort of a winter kind of.
I mean, I would not vote to invest any money in that until I knew somebody was going to use it.
We've invested a bunch of money and it hasn't been usable.
And we were encouraged all along the way to do exactly what we did. So I think that's my own PTSD. But,
exactly.
Right. And all the hard work. You've gathered your data. That's the hardest part.
But the fact is, I think we've kind of gotten past that and said, okay, we got data. Now let's figure out if there's any possible way that we can get it to the people who are likely to be there after we've all been evacuated.
Yes,
and can no longer talk to us.
Let me, since I've started the conversation with Jason Martin.
Yes.
Let me find out from him what information he wants. You know, part of it may be just paring down the information so he doesn't have information overload. And
I don't think there's anything we wouldn't do to
and then what format. So I had put in the chat, you know, that what he had asked Fireside for was a KMZ shapefile. I don't know really what that is or how you get from something else to a KMZ shapefile. I'm sure there are smarter people than I am who know about that. But since I'm already talking about that with him for the Fireside data, I'm happy to expand that conversation.
And I'd love Piper, that's fabulous, but I would love it if he would come to one of these meetings and maybe someone who's not in the county but in the state, and just
we've done that, Donine, we've done that, and it kind of went nowhere. Edward was at one of those meetings,
right? But that was a particular vendor also. So like that was a while ago.
That was sort of part of it, but we also had the other kind of discussion. Let me talk to him first.
Sure, of course.
And just kind of get an idea, and then I'll also ask Jason Brooks at Fireside, who I think would know this, how difficult it is to take things from whatever format it's in and put it into the KMZ shapefile if that's what Jason Martin needs. What I'd love for you guys to do, anybody who's collecting this data, is let me know what the platform is that data is in. What's what's the program or what's the platform?
Sure.
So
No problem. Piper, let me just go back a step. I think we could move the data even if it was a matter of re-entering it into the right format.
Yeah, we have the capability.
We would do that.
Okay.
What we want to do is to know that it's going to be used.
Okay.
So I think it's the bigger question with the various fire departments that we interact with, both from out of the area and regional.
Yeah. Is the beacon box really the ultimate final thing, or is that a step along the way towards something else? And
Let me chime in. Can I chime in here for a second?
Yeah.
Sure.
The point of the beacon box is not for our local fire departments to have. It should be a very quick and easy reference point for out of town crews to use. And so it can't be too complex. It can't be too much information. It's got to be simple. I have a sample map here. This is Agora, old Agora, and this is in Southern California, right? It's a very simple map. And the key on the map, the only thing that's on the key in the map is the number of structures. Okay. It has the addresses per structure on the map. It has turnaround points. It has hydrant locations, water sources, and that's it. And so that's really, when you're in an emergency situation, it's really the only information that you need. Can you get to an area and get away from that area safely? Is there water there? Mm-hmm. And how many structures are there to defend? And is it a defensible space? A lot of the other information isn't really necessary for out-of-town crews. All that data is really great for local crews, but it's too much information for folks that are out of town. And
well,
that's
we agree with all of that. It's just nobody ever bothered to open up the box that we have sitting.
So I would just like to say again, as we cross 6:30, if we could make this the topic of another meeting and see if we can't get, I would love to see Jason's nodding his head saying, yes, this is how it would work. At the
right.
And then I think I would be ready. It looks great, Brandon.
And
let me also say that these boxes are all over Southern California. They're all over Malibu, Agora Hills, and Beverly Hills. And so eventually, and this isn't going to happen overnight, eventually there'll be recognition. And so when we get a crew from Southern California and they see a beacon box, they'll say, hey, I know what's in that box. And vice versa. And eventually everyone will know what's in it because it's a big red box. It says fire department, and they're going to know what's inside.
And that's fabulous as long as that is the trajectory. And
right.
I only would like, I trust you implicitly, but I would like to have our fire guys nod their heads.
Yes, Donnie, that's true. And
and let me just say one thing, as not as recovered a lawyer as I would like to be. And that is, if you've got any personal identifiable information, you have got to get the permission of the person who owns that before you share it.
Correct.
Like a gate code or something along those lines.
A name, a telephone number. I mean, anything that's personally identifiable, not just a gate code. It goes way beyond that. And California has implemented a pretty strict privacy regulation.
Right.
So when we did the defensible space grant, we actually asked for permission and had people check off that we can share it with the fire marshal's office.
Right.
So-
That's why it's important to not dive deep into these rabbit holes of data where it needs to be public information. This is house numbers, street names, and then hydrant locations and water sources and where you can turn a truck around.
I look forward to the conversation.
Excellent.
All right,
Right, you
everyone.
guys.
Yeah, we'll arrange that. Definitely. I just wanted to say thank you all for being here so long. We can stay on and talk all night, but I think we should probably wrap this up, and we'll send around lots of notes. If you want to have
Gretchen, sorry to interrupt. Can I give a 30-second plug on the D-Space program? I highly recommend that fire safe councils, especially knowing that they only charge Napa Firewise $17 an inspection, put the 3 hours per homeowner's worth of effort into helping.
Evan, that's just the software. It's $200 that we pay to the inspector that comes out.
Still a deal then. Thanks for
It
clarifying.
is still a deal, but it isn't $17.50 all in.
Okay, that sounded too good to be true then. I just that's why I was so enthusiastic. But thank you so much, Piper and Eric and Roger, for all the help you guys do. I like thanking everybody, but Fire Safe Council members, I suggest that in the Berryessa Highlands, the success story I want to share in 30 seconds is with a lot of effort, I was able to sign up 10 homeowners that were easy to identify, that needed a lot of defensible space work. And I simply went as their neighbor and said, hey, you should do this and you should do that. Have you considered this? The majority of them had considered it, but they never had the funding to do it. So the D-Space grant, especially considering the fact that low-income residents qualify. Piper, this is normal, this is knowledge, right? Like I can share this?
Yes, okay. Verified low income, and the income levels are on the self-assessment survey. They will get 100% reimbursement. Again, the limit is still $3,500.
So if you have a low-income home family that lives in the neighborhood, in your neighborhood, I go talk to them and knock on their door and say, hey, you probably qualify for 100% reimbursement up to $3,500. And let's support Eric on his mission to help get all the homes up to par. And this is Piper's program here is really a great program to help get the county and the homes up to par. So I couldn't resist throwing that in because we've had some great success in the Highlands. We've got a few homes that are going through some defensible space makeovers, and it really makes a huge difference.
And frankly, if the more low income participants we get, the better our grant funders like it. So thank you, Evan, for finding those and getting those for us. And
absolutely,
in terms of the other ones, what we've looked at what people have spent, because they generally spend beyond twice what they're getting reimbursed. And when we did an analysis for the last grant that this was under, the homeowners spent 3 times as much. So the impact in the community was just tremendous.
Yeah. So if we all help people through this process, let's spend this money. Thank you, Piper.
I think it's contagious too. It's inspiring when neighbors see this happening, they also step up too. So
good night,
trying
everybody.
to provide.
All right, I'm gonna go. Right. It's Bo's birthday, so I have to go make him a birthday hamburger.
Happy birthday, Bo.
Happy
We've got these little guys need names too. We're doing a naming contest for the goats. I forgot to mention that when we were doing updates, but these are our mascots for Napa Firewise.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sherry, for posting that up. Guys, this is some of the stuff that's on our social media. This is in an effort to get more followers and more people knowing about what we do as Napa Firewise. I can tell you, I've only been with this organization for a very short time, but any time and every time I'm making a public event, or if I'm out in the public and talking to folks, I'm not only introducing myself, but I'm introducing Napa Firewise as an organization. And that right there is more than enough to say that we need to continue to brand our organization, get people out there knowing that we exist. We are doing amazing work. All of you are working tremendously hard. So this is one way that we're going to hopefully do that. Animals and children get a lot of attention on social media, especially when they're cute little goats like this. So we're having a contest to name these cuties, and that will be posted up hopefully this week. So again, I appreciate the following that you guys are showing us with social media, and please encourage your friends and neighbors to do the same.
And I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say, if you need some baby goats to help promote your fire safe council,
we will
I'll
come
bring
with
them over.
we will.
We'll
Go
turn
up
up
there.
some
Super
baby goats,
sweet.
yeah.
Love pets and loves. So
Thanks,
all right, thanks
everybody.
everyone.
Always
Have a
an
great night. Appreciate
inspiration.
you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.